Scary story. You know, I've never been one to believe in any kind of devilry. I've always considered myself a rational person, and now something's happening to me that makes my hair stand on end. Okay, I'll try to tell it in order. Otherwise I'm already getting confused in my thoughts. It all started 3 days ago. I was returning home from my friend Lenka's. We stayed up late. We hadn't seen each other for a long time. So much had accumulated that I wanted to discuss. It was already the dead of night on the street. The lights were flickering dimly. There were almost no people. I called a taxi, and we were driving. And then I noticed something strange. We were just passing an old house. You know, one with some kind of turrets. Some kind of stucco. Peeling. It had an eerie appearance. And then on the third floor, in one of the windows, a light was on. And in this window I saw a silhouette. A clear black silhouette of a woman hanging upside down. Imagine, as if her legs were tied to the ceiling. And she herself was just dangling in the air like a bat. Her arms hanging absolutely motionless at her sides, unnaturally relaxed, as if gravity didn't exist for them. And the hair, the black mass of hair, fell down, and the ends were somehow strange, otherwise, as if cut the other way around from the ends to the roots. No other details, only this eerie black profile against the yellow window light. As soon as it dawned on me that I was seeing me, icy goosebumps crept in. Please turn around, but I couldn't leave it like that. I had to check. We turned around and drove up again, and in the window nothing, only some crumpled, dusty curtains with long tassels. Yes, an old lamp. But if you squint really hard and strain your imagination, then maybe it really could have passed. Depends on the figure, especially those stupid tassels. I shook my head, told the driver to drive on. I decided that it seemed so. I was overtired. The play of light. I've had this happen before. My brain likes to add in all sorts of things. For example, when you see a face in a pattern on a carpet or animal figures in the clouds, this effect is apparently overdeveloped in me. I remember, once upon a time, when I cut my bangs for the first time, I kept seeing some dark figures in the corners for several days. I was stumped for a long time until I realized that it was just my hair getting in my eyes, and my brain was turning them into some kind of demons. It was stupid, of course. In general, I didn't attach much importance to that upside-down woman in the window. I reassured myself that it was just my imagination running wild, until I saw her again. The next day, I was riding the subway to work. The morning was gray. The car was packed with people. It smelled of dampness and other people's perfumes. I looked out the window. There flashed the lights of the station, tunnel expanses, and when an oncoming train rushes past us, I just mechanically looked up, and there she was again, the same silhouette of a woman hanging upside down in the window of an oncoming train. She was very close to the glass, all blurred, because of the speed, but unmistakably recognizable. I saw her for no more than a second, but she seemed to be engraved in my memory before the belt roared past. What the fit? The devil. My heart is pounding like crazy. Maybe it's just I don't know. Someone's black cloak was lying on the seat, or a strange bag. There must be an explanation. But my palms instantly started sweating, and some kind of animal horror forged everything inside me for the rest of the journey. I stared out the window, peering at the trains, but there were only ordinary carriages, people buried in their phones. No one was hanging anywhere. When I got off at my station, my legs were shaking as if I had run a marathon. I barely forced myself to go to work, trying to maintain the last of my composure. In the evening on the way home, I tried my best not to look out the subway windows. When I got home, I immediately turned on some stupid TV series on the internet to distract myself, and mindlessly ate a whole bag of chips. Then I finally fell asleep, fell into a sleep like into a well, apparently from nervous exhaustion, and woke up with a jerk at exactly 3 hours 3 minutes a.m. I was all sticky with cold sweat, as if I had been dipped in ice water. My heart was thumping in my ribs, so it seemed it was about to jump out, and the strangest thing was, I completely didn't remember what I dreamed usually. After such awakenings, some scraps of a nightmare remain in my head, creepy images, and then the ringing emptiness turned over on the other side, pulled the blanket up to my chin, closed my eyes, tried to fall asleep again, but sleep did not come. And then I realized, something was wrong in the room. There was some kind of unnatural cottony silence, and also the feeling as if someone was staring at me. I opened my eyes and began to slowly look around. My heart was pounding somewhere in my throat. Everything seemed as usual. Dark silhouettes of furniture, lofty bookshelves, armchair. Except for the light, it was too dark. Absolutely impenetrable darkness. Usually a thin strip of light from a street lamp, always peeked through from under the curtains, such an annoying orange rectangle on the wall. But now, nothing. I sat up on the bed and turned to the window. Yes, there was definitely no usual light. Slowly trying not to breathe, I stood up and tiptoed to the window. I paused for a second, gathering my courage, and abruptly pulled the curtain, bending my knees so I didn't collapse on the floor. She was hanging right outside the window on the roof of a neighboring building, or on some kind of canopy right opposite my window. Her legs were unnaturally twisted, and as if nailed to something up there. Rocky hung limply like a broken puppet. Her hair, like black water, flowed down almost to the windowsill, and swayed slightly in the wind, and her whole body swayed rhythmically, barely noticeably, in time with this weak breeze. I let out some kind of muffled squeak. Out of breath, I recoiled from the window, and convulsively pulled the curtains back. I stumbled and ran to the light switch. I clicked. A bright, blinding light flooded the room, stood there for a second, trying to catch my breath, then tiptoed to the window again, and carefully peeked through the narrow gap between the curtains. There was no one there, only the dim light of a lantern, the night sky, distant stars, no hanging woman. The next morning, I desperately tried to convince myself that it was just a nightmare, a particularly realistic sleep paralysis or something like that. I had strange sensations on the verge of sleep before, and reality when reality mixes with nonsense. Maybe I was just imagining it all myself, but somewhere deep inside, I knew it was real, too creepy, but I so wanted to believe in a dream, in a hallucination, at least in something that could calm me down. I walked to work as if on a waking walk, like a zombie on the subway. Tried not to raise my eyes, looked at my feet, drank 3 huge cups of coffee, but it burned, and didn't invigorate. My colleague Zhenya, always so friendly, came up to me. "Hi, you look like you haven't slept all night." And Tanya, our secretary, asked if everything was okay. "You're not sick." I mumbled something in response. What could I tell them? The guys are hunting me. The upside-down woman I see in the windows is hunting me. They would definitely think I've gone crazy and call the paramedics. When I got home in the evening, the first thing I did was rush to the computer and frantically search the internet for anything similar to what I saw. I dug through a bunch of websites and forums with urban legends. Previously, I only went to such angles to laugh at the next horror story about Slenderman or bogeymen. But now I was in no mood for laughter. I desperately searched for an answer, an explanation, or anything, and finally found several mentions. Someone wrote that his friend saw an upside-down woman and went to the next world 4 days after the first meeting. Stay away from windows. They warned in one post that she can only appear in a reflection or behind glass. They also wrote that the friend first saw her through 2 layers of glass, like me, a car window, and a house window, and then through 1 subway window, the window of my apartment, as if it were gradually being reduced. It is considered a lip lens for glasses. A phone screen, they answered him vaguely. There must be glass, or a material similar to glass in front of a person. What exactly does glass-like mean? No one explained. And how the hell is it possible to completely avoid windows in the modern world? Wall up in a bunker. But I have a basement. Dark, damp, smelling of mold and earth. But no windows. Well, almost. 1 small window under the ceiling. But it is old and tightly boarded up with boards from the outside for many years. And I decided to hide there. I dragged down a mattress, a sleeping bag, a supply of water, canned food, a flashlight, a power bank, and a laptop. I tried not to look towards the windows on the first floor. When I rushed back and forth, tenderly looking around, I wrote to my boss that I had come down with a fever, somehow settled down on an old sofa that had been standing in the basement since time immemorial, tried to create an island of safety for myself. I don't know how long it will last, and whether it's even possible to sit this out. To be honest, until the very last moment, I didn't know if I really believed all of this. Part of me screamed that this was the ravings of a madman. Mass hysteria from the internet multiplied by my own, and of course, stress. But very soon I had to believe it completely and irrevocably. I decided to read a book to somehow distract myself and occupy my brain. I picked up some old detective story, right there in the basement. It was quite dark. Only the dim light from the flashlight was there, and I mechanically put on my reading glasses, a second-minute habit that became fatal. As soon as the lenses of the glasses appeared in front of my eyes, I screamed with a wild, inhuman scream that burst from the very depths of my being. She was hanging from the basement ceiling right above me in the darkest corner. From the impenetrable darkness under the ceiling hung something black, shapeless, with hair almost reaching the floor, and this time I saw her face. Or rather, not a face, but some kind of distorted, inhuman semblance with huge, homeless black eye sockets. Her mouth stretched into a terrible, unnatural grimace, and she moved with sharp, twitching, incredibly fast movements. She separated from the ceiling and crawled towards me along the wall. She looked like a giant black spider, ignoring gravity. In a panic, I tore the glasses off my face, but it was too late. A sharp, burning pain flared in my hand. When I shone a flashlight at my hand, I saw 4 deep, jagged scratches on my forearm, as if I were about to be slashed. So I've been sitting here in my basement, far from any windows or mirrors, for the 3rd day now, eating cold canned food and drinking warm water. I'm trying not to think from the bottle. According to that guy from the internet, his friend was killed on the 4th day. What will happen tomorrow? Will my time expire? Does this mean that if I hold out, she will leave and switch to someone else? Or will she still find a way to get to me? Is there glass or not? I don't know. Sometimes I feel like I'm going crazy, sitting here in this musty darkness and whispering to myself, this isn't true, it's just a nightmare. I'll wake up soon. But the cold goosebumps on my skin and the aching pain in my arm say otherwise. Last night, when I just came down, it seemed to me that I heard someone's footsteps upstairs, quiet, stealthy, as if someone was walking around the house on tiptoe. I froze, listening, my heart pounding in my ears. Who was there? I whispered into the darkness of the basement. Of course, no one answered. Maybe it's just the old house creaking in the wind, or my imagination is running wild. And this morning, I woke up from a strange sound, as if someone was scratching behind the wall, so quietly, persistently at first. I thought it was a mouse. But then the scraping became somehow more meaningful, as if someone was trying to scratch from I'm reading a book, under the dim light of a flashlight. But the letters are blurry. The same thoughts are spinning in my head. What does she want? Why me? What will happen tomorrow? Suddenly, in the silence of the basement, a quiet knock was heard somewhere very close. I shuddered and froze, holding my breath. The knock was repeated, quiet, barely audible, but this made it even more creepy, as if someone lightly knocked on the wall right behind me. Here, in a trembling voice, I asked. Silence. Only my own ragged breathing broke the oppressive silence of the basement. Maybe it's just a play of sounds. Maybe it's all just my imagination. But then I heard a whisper, barely audible, quiet, but this made it even more chilling. The whisper came from somewhere above, from under the ceiling. I couldn't make out a word, but the very sound of this whisper made my blood run cold. I whispered back, although I knew that no one could hear me, I beg you to just leave me. The silence again swallowed the basement, but now I felt that she was somewhere nearby, very close. She was waiting. If I don't hear from you in the next 24 hours, consider it happened. The worst thing, please. If you are listening to this, just know I tried. Yes.